Former President Jimmy Carter held a news conference earlier today where we learned that he has cancer and it spread to his liver and brain. Here's what he had to say about his diagnosis and his reaction after finding out he has cancer.
In May, I went down to Guyana to help monitor an election. And I had a very bad cold, and I left down there and came back to Emory so they could check me over. And in the process, they did a complete physical examination, and an MRI showed that there was a cancer or growth, a tumor on my liver. And they did a PET scan, and that kind of lights up a bad place, and it lit up. So they're pretty sure that there was a cancer before they operated on August the 3rd and removed it. The tumor was only about 2.5 cubic centimeters, but they removed about 85 cubic centimeters, which is about a tenth of my liver. And they did a biopsy and found that it was indeed cancer, and it was melanoma. And they had a very high suspicion then and now that the melanoma started somewhere else on my body and spread to the liver. The doctors tell me that about 98% of all the melanoma is skin cancer, and about 2% of the melanomas are internal. So then I came back up here after that, and they did a biopsy and found that they did an MRI and found that there were 4 spots of melanoma on my brain. They are very small spots, about 2 millimeters, if you can envision what a millimeter is. And I'll get my first radiation treatment for the melanoma in my brain this afternoon. And then I understand I'll have 4 treatments scheduled at 3-week intervals. In addition to that, yesterday they fitted me with a mask to hold my head perfectly still while the radiation goes in to the right places. And I'm all prepared for that, which will take place this afternoon. In addition, they have given me an IV for 30 minutes of pembrolizumab. And this is a medicine that they use for melanoma that enhances the activity of the anti-immune system. And this is medicine that's been approved in the United States. There are similar ones that have also been tested in Europe. My doctors and they will also continue to scan other parts of my body with MRI and CAT scan and PET scan to see if and where the melanoma originated. And so that'll be an ongoing examination of my body for the next number of months, I presume, if that goes on that long. Dr. Juan Sarmiento is a doctor at Emory that did the surgery on my liver. Dr. David Lawson is a specialist on melanoma, and Dr. Curran, who's here, is a specialist on radiation treatment, and he's in charge of the Winship Cancer Center. And they're working very closely with other cancer centers around this nation, in particular the MD Anderson Center in Houston, Texas, the National Cancer Institute, Sloan Kettering, and others. I've had a lot of people call and recommend different places, and I referred those offers of help to the doctors, and they have reached out to get their acquiescence or approval of what they've decided to do in the treatment. For a number of years, Rosa and I have planned on dramatically reducing our work at the Carter Center, but haven't done it yet. We thought about this when I was 80. We thought about it again when I was 85. We thought about it again when I was 90. And so this is a propitious time, I think, for us to finally carry out our long-delayed plans. So I'm going to cut back fairly dramatically on my obligations at Emory, at the Carter Center. As you know, the Carter Center has a full legal partnership with Emory. Half of our trustees are selected by Emory, and we approve them, and vice versa. The president of Emory University is on our board of trustees, as are Rosa and I. And we have built up a fairly substantial endowment to tide the Carter Center over when I'm not any longer able to raise funds. We have now about a little over $600 million in our endowment. But I'll continue to sign letters requesting contributions and making key calls to people that might be prospects for funding. So I'll continue with the funding. The trustee meetings at Carter Center, I'll continue to attend those. And I'd like to also to schedule the regular meetings with our fellows and directors as they give detailed reports quite regularly on what we are doing with the fight against guinea worm and with our peace programs and other health programs and so forth. So I'll continue to do that. I can't really anticipate how I'll be feeling, obviously, but I'll have to defer quite substantially to my doctors in charge of the treatment. I understand that the radiation treatments and also the injections will be every 3 weeks for 4 times, and they'll stop and take a look at what the results might have been. And I'll try to adhere to that schedule as much as possible. The Carter Center is well prepared to continue on without any handicap if Rosa and I do back away from a lot of the activities that we've been doing. We have decided last March that our grandson Jason would take over as the chairman of the board, replacing Oz Nelson, which is Oz Nelson's suggestion. And the Board of Trustees made that decision in March to be effective at our meeting in November. So Jason will be the chairman of the Board of Trustees of Carter Center, which is a body that makes the ultimate decisions about what projects that Carter works on and budget matters and things of that kind. And then, of course, if he wants me to give him advice, I'll be delighted to do it, as I've done some other people in the past. I was a chairman for a while, but I stepped down a number of years ago to give other people a chance to work on it. So I'll try as best I can to continue my work as a professor at Emory and to attend some of the meetings, but I would say that the rest of my plans will be determined by my consultations with the doctors and what I need to do to get adequate treatment for the melanoma that exists, at least has existed in my liver. They think they got it all there, but has shown up now in 4 places in my brain, and is likely to show up other places in my body as the scans detect it in the future. So that's all I wanted to say to you, but I'll be glad to answer a couple of questions if you have them.
Good morning, President Carter. I'm Lori Geary with WSB-TV.
Yes.
Just want to get, what was your initial reaction, when you heard that C word, the cancer word, and, what doctors have said about your prognosis? You seem very optimistic. Your spirits are very good.
Well, at first I felt that it was confined to my liver and that the operation had completely removed it, so I had quite relieved. And then that same afternoon, we had an MRI of my head and neck, and it showed up that it was already in 4 places in my brain. So I would say that night and the next day until I came back up to Emory, I just thought I had a few weeks left. But I was surprisingly at ease. You know, I've had a wonderful life. I've had thousands of friends, and I've had an exciting and adventurous and gratifying existence. So I was surprisingly at ease, much more so than my wife was. But now I feel, you know, that it's in the hands of God, whom I worship, and I'll be prepared for anything that comes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Mr. President?
Yes, shoot. Oh, hi.
Mr. President, you just said that you expect that there will be further cancers diagnosed.
Yes.
So was it at all difficult, given the fact you also just said that you thought maybe it was a matter of a few weeks, was it difficult at all to decide to go ahead with treatment? I mean, does your faith play any role in the fact that you did that, or did you consider at any time not doing anything at all?
No, I never have doubted that I would carry out the recommendations of the Emory doctors. And so when they said that they wanted to go ahead and find out other places that might show up cancer and treat them, I'm perfectly at ease with that. And I'm perfectly at ease with whatever comes. You know, I do have deep religious faith, which I'm very grateful for. And I was pleasantly surprised that that I didn't go into an attitude of despair or anger or anything like that. I was just completely at ease. As Rosen would testify, I think if you have any doubts about my veracity, but I've just been very grateful for that part of it. So I'm ready for anything and looking forward to a new adventure.
President Carter, Katie Foodie with the Associated Press. You just said that you felt at ease. Can you tell us a little bit more about your discussions with your doctors, with your family, and how you came to decide that you did want treatment and you wanted to pursue anything that your doctors did recommend would be appropriate for you?
Well, that never was a difficulty for me because I don't think I've ever deviated from a commitment to do what my doctors recommended. So that one was not a big decision for me. I decided that to begin with. And so Dr. Curran is here, and I understand if you have any technical questions to ask him or medical questions, he'd be willing to answer any questions that you might have later on. But I have the three doctors have worked in close harmony with me, and the surgeon who did the operation on my liver, Dr. Sarmiento, and Dr. Curran, who is a specialist on treatment of cancer, and also Dr. Lawson, who is a specialist on melanoma itself. So they have been like a team working very closely with me, and I have complete confidence in them. And they've been gracious enough to reach out to others who have volunteered to consult with them, and I understand they've shared even the MRI with some others. So they're consulting, I guess, with the best cancer treaters in the world, and I'm very grateful that Emory is in charge.
Lynn Anderson with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Yeah.
First of all, President Carter, I'm so sorry and sad to hear this news. And I just have a basic question. How are you feeling?
I feel good. I haven't felt any weakness or debility. The pain has been very slight. Right after the operation on my liver, I had a little bit of pain in my stomach. It was laparoscopy operation. They made three very tiny incisions in my stomach. I had some pain in my right shoulder, strangely enough, but the doctor said that's expected. There's kind of a resonating pain that goes from your liver internal organs up to your right shoulder if you have liver problems, and I think if you have a heart problem, it goes to your left shoulder. So, but I survived. I only took the pain medicine for a few hours, and then I didn't have to take it anymore. I had a slight reaction last night to the first treatment of the pembrolizumab, and I had a little bit of pain in my shoulder, and I went to bed about 6 o'clock and slept till 8 o'clock this morning. I think that's probably the best night's sleep I've had in many years. So I feel at ease about it, and I have been very lucky that the Emory doctors have been able to control any aspects of pain from the operation or from the presence of cancer. Yeah.
Mr. President, Tom Jones from WSB TV. You mentioned all the well-wishers. Has there been any one correspondence or call that really touched you?
Well, both of the former President Bush called me at one time, and then George H.W. Bush Sr. called me yesterday afternoon again. I think I appreciated that very much, and their wives were there on the telephone with them. President Obama called, the Vice President called, Bill Clinton called, Hillary Clinton called, Secretary of State called. First time they've called me in a long time. And, but I think the close friends that I've had around home that have done special things to bring us, peach pie, stuff like that, that's what it's really made me feel more emotional. And my whole family, all of the folks, we have 21 other Carters that live in Georgia, and they've been down to see us. They'll be down again this weekend for my wife's birthday celebration. So I just had a multiple effusion of gratitude.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Hi, Jonathan Carl with ABC News. Two questions. First, I saw a report that you told Habitat for Humanity that you would still like to go forward with your trip to Nepal in November. Do you still hope to make that trip? And
I would still hope to go. It would require an airplane flight from Kathmandu to the Chitwan area, which is south down toward the Indian border. And if I do that, I understand, I haven't talked to the doctors yet, but I understand from my schedule that it would require a 5-week postponement of my last treatment. So that's what I'm going to have to consider. But up until this morning, I was completely committed to go to Habitat. But if I don't go, the rest of my family will probably go to take my place.
And if I can ask, you have really redefined what it means to be a former president. Can you reflect on the work you have done since you left the White House and what you hope to still do?
Well, the work at the Carter Center has been, I'd say, more personally gratifying to me because, when you're president, you have a responsibility for over 350 million people and 3,000 members of the armed forces and budgets and Congress and so forth. And I was able to do a number of good things when I was president, for which I'm very grateful, and that was a high point of my life, politically speaking. And I would say that my having been president of the United States, a great country, has made it possible for me to have the influence and contact with people and knowledge that has been the foundation for the Carter Center. But the Carter Center has a completely different approach. We deal with individual people in the smallest and most obscure and suffering villages in the desert and in the jungles of Africa, and we've had programs in 80 different countries on earth for the poorest and most destitute people in the world. And that has been, I'd say, far more gratifying, personally, because we actually interact with families and with people who are going blind or who have lymphatic filariasis, which is elephantiasis, or who have guinea worm and so forth, and going into villages and learning about them and what their actual needs are, and then meeting those needs with a superb Carter Center medical staff, I think has been one of the best things that ever happened to me. I've said several times that my life since the White House has been personally more gratifying, although the presidency was obviously the pinnacle of my political success, and also has laid the groundwork for my work at the Carter Center.
And you still feel you have a lot of work left to do?
Well, I do, and within the bounds of my physical and mental capability, I'll continue to do it. But I'm going to have to give the treatment regimen, I think, top priority.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President. Hallie Jackson, NBC News. Given your current cancer diagnosis, given your family history with this disease, what message do you have to other cancer patients who are watching you go through this now?
Well, I've learned a lot about cancer with the death of my father and my only brother, and both my sisters, from pancreatic cancer. And for a long time, my family was the only one on earth that had as many as 4 people who died with pancreatic cancer. It's a very rare thing. I think now they found 2 or 3 other families. But after I left the White House and my brothers and sisters continued to die, then they did some special checks on my blood samples and things of that kind, and some scans of different kinds. So pancreatic cancer is, I understand, does have some genetic cause. That's what I've read some of the scientific documents. But it's exacerbated by smoking cigarettes, which I've never done. And so the melanoma is a completely different thing. And it may be that in the future the melanoma would show up on my pancreas, but they have not found that to be true in the last few weeks. They've examined the pancreas quite closely. And so far, the only place they've known about the cancer has been on my liver and my brain. So I would say that one of the greatest scientific developments in the last 5 years has been with two kinds of cancer. One is lung cancer, and the other one is melanoma. And so the treatment for melanoma, in addition to radiation or chemotherapy, has been the giving of these medicines that exacerbate or enhance, I'd say is a better word, that enhance the function of your self, regulating aspect, the autoimmune system. So they make your autoimmune system more active, and so that's a basic approach. But there's several of these medicines.
So the message to other patients, is your message one of hope? Is it acceptance?
It's one of hope and acceptance, yes. Hope for the best and accept what comes. I think I have been as blessed as any human being in the world with having become the President of the United States of America and Governor of Georgia and the work at the Carter Center and a big and growing family and thousands of friends. So I don't think, and living till I'll be 91 years old, 1st of October. So I've had, everything's been a blessing for me. So I'm thankful and hopeful.
President Carter, Kane Fairbaugh with Voice of America.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, what has been, you said that you've sort of taken a pragmatic approach to the treatment and to the news, but what has been the most difficult part about the news for you in the past couple of weeks?
Well, I haven't had any difficult treatment aspect yet. The liver surgery was fairly extensive. They removed about 1/10 of my liver, I understand. But it healed up quickly, and I had minimal pain. And the first treatment I had yesterday will be followed this afternoon by the radiation, and that'll be every 3 weeks or 4 times, and then they'll reassess. So I haven't had any unpleasantness yet.
Is it difficult to step away from all of the busy activities and
Well,
scheduling?
that's a bad foot. I really wanted to go to Nepal to build houses. This would have been our 33rd year, Rosa? 33rd year of going without fail, and I was very hopeful about that. But if it interrupts the strict treatment regimen, then I think I need to get the treatment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, President Carter. Karen Greer, CBS 46 News. And just wondering, you touched upon it a little bit. In your illustrious career, as you said, governor here, president, even as husband, father, grandfather, is there anything, or share with us what you're most proud of, and if there's anything you might have done differently or thought, maybe I wish I had not done that?
Well, the best thing I ever did was marrying Rosalind. That's the pinnacle of my life. And we've had 69 years together, still together. And so that's the best thing that happened to me. But I think getting involved in politics and going up, as a state senator, then governor, and president of the United States is obviously a glorious event. So, and we have a growing family. We have 22 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. 12 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren now, and they come in every year. so we have a good and harmonious family. And I would say the haven for our lives has been in Plains, Georgia. I plan to teach Sunday school this Sunday and every Sunday as long as I'm, physically and mentally able in my little church. And we have hundreds of visitors who come to see the curiosity of a politician teaching the Bible. So I'll continue that. So I've just had a lot of blessings.
And anything you wish, that you had not done or that you'd done differently?
I wish I had sent one more helicopter to get the hostages, and we would have rescued them, and I would have been reelected. But that may have, and that may have interfered with the foundation of the Carter Center. And if I had to choose between 4 more years and the Carter Center, I think I would choose the Carter Center.
Thank you.
It could have been both.
President Carter. Donna Lowry with 11 Alive, WXIA TV. I wonder, you just talked about your big family, and with this diagnosis, have you encouraged them to see the doctor? Are you seeing that there's more interest in finding out what's going on with each one of them?
I don't think there's any doubt that my descendants have some genetic challenge from the pancreatic cancer and my melanoma. So whatever the doctors recommend for, for blood tests or things like that as a precautionary measure for the other family members, I think that will probably be put into effect. But I haven't discussed that with them, and I don't know the answer yet. I'll get 2 or 3 more questions. All right, go ahead.
President Carter, Greg Bluestein with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Yeah, I know.
I wonder, how did you break the news to your family?
Well, I found out toward the end of May that I had a spot on my liver that was a suspect. And I think I put in my diary that I didn't tell Rosen until about the 15th of June. And then when I found out that I had definitely cancer, my key members of my family came in to the Carter Center, and I gave them a briefing and gave our chief executive officer a briefing what the prospects were. And so, and then I put out a statement as soon as I knew about it to the public that I did have cancer, and when we found out that it had metastasized, we also put out a press conference on that. I didn't say what kind it was. I didn't say it was melanoma. I didn't say it had spread to my brain. I just said to other parts of my body. So as quickly as I could, I've said what I've told the public and my family the things about which I was absolutely certain, rather than just guessing what might happen.
President Carter, thank you. Sanjay Gupta with CNN.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've been taking all these other questions so I can get to you. Sanjay?
Well, I have a couple of questions, a little bit more specific about the medical aspects. You became ill, you said, in May and came back early to the United States.
Yeah.
They had an MRI at that time that showed this liver mass, but it wasn't until 2 months later, my understanding from your comments, that you had the operation.
That's right.
I'm wondering about that time period. Was there a consideration not to do anything during that time period?
No.
And also, just quickly, the medications, you said you're following the recommendations of your doctor. Were you given options, and how did you weigh those options?
Yeah, I was given a complete rundown on the options that were available. And when they made a recommendation on a particular kind of medical treatment, I had an IV yesterday, I took their advice. And we knew, I would say, the end of June, that I had to have an operation on my liver. But I had an extensive book tour scheduled on 14 or 15 cities. And I wanted to do that, and the doctors told me that it was a very slow-growing cancer. Apparently, it wouldn't make any difference between the middle of July and the 3rd day of August, so we scheduled it when I got through with the book tour. And coincidentally, and not more importantly, my surgeon had scheduled a vacation trip in Spain. And so the combination of all those things just caused me to wait till everything was ready. So I stayed very busy during that time, and I didn't tell anybody much about it, except Rosen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have another question, Sanjay?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
President Ray Gazaway at WAOB in Albany, you mentioned Plains there. Talk a little bit about the support of them and what that's meant to you.
Well, Plains is my home. You know, I was born there. My wife was born there. And I knew Rosen when she was first born. I was 3 years older and still am. And Plains has always been a haven for us. When I got out of the Navy in 1953, I came back to Plains. And I was a farmer for about 17 years. And then when I got through being governor, I came back to Plains. When I got through being president, I came back to Plains. And now, no matter where we are in the world, we're always looking forward to getting back home. to Plains. That's where our land is. We've had the same farm since 1833. We have a newer farm we got in 1904. We still grow peanuts and cotton and corn on the farm. And so my roots are there, and my closest friends are there, and our little church is there, which is very important to me. So Plains has just been the focal point of our life. And a good many visitors who come there every year, about 80,000, I think, according to the official count. And, you know, they come to find out how out of this little tiny town a future president could have come. And they learn about my schooling and things of that kind. So Plains means a lot to me.
Thank you.
Okay, let's not add anybody else to the line, please. I'll do that.
Thank you. President Carter, Jesus Uzcategui with Mundo Hispanico newspaper. I wonder if you have discussed with your family or closest circle, how do you see this organization in the future, the Carter Center?
How do I feel what?
How do you see the Carter Center in the future? Have you discussed that?
Well, I think the Carter Center's future will be equal to what it's been in the past. It's been expanding every year as far as the number of people we treat for terrible diseases and things of that kind. I understand that this coming year we'll treat 71 million people on Earth for diseases so that they won't have the afflictions that they've had throughout their lifetimes. And so we've added that. We've finished 100 troubled elections to bring democracy and freedom to people. And we still try to bring peace. So we concentrate on peace and human rights and democracy, freedom, and alleviation of suffering. And I would say that in every one of those areas, the Carter Center's overall function and plans for the future are still expanding. And I'm completely confident that those plans can be realized without my everyday, constant involvement in different projects. And I'll still be coming to the trustees meeting, and as long as I'm able, and meeting with our directors and others who carry out the programs.
And have you received messages from Latin America where the Carter Center had participation?
Well, I've had a lot of messages the last few days from Latin America. I'll be meeting next week, soon, I don't know if it's next week, but next month, with a group from Panama, and I've already approved that program on my schedule. So we maintain a wide range of programs in Latin America, primarily to try to do away with conflicts within the country, the relationship between the news media and the executive branch of government when they try to stamp out freedom of the press, and also peaceful relationships. And we have still an ongoing program in 6 countries in Latin America to just about finish that, to do away with onchocerciasis or river blindness. We still have just a small cluster of people, the Yanomami people, about 25,000, I think, total population on the border between Venezuela and Brazil. So we're going to continue to try to work on that. So we'll continue our work in Latin America.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Scott Kimbler, News Radio 1067 here in Atlanta. As Jason is preparing to take over as chairman of the board of the Carter Center, you have very much been the face of peace negotiations since the time that you left office. As he is continuing the efforts in the health and humanitarian efforts of Carter Center, will he also be active, and will you be advising him in future international conflict that the Carter Center may be asked to become a negotiator of types with?
Well, the chairman of the Board of Trustees and the entire body of trustees, about 23, I think, they make the final decisions. They make the ultimate choices of what we do and how much money we spend on it, how many people we send there, and that sort of thing. And so the chairman of the board is very deeply involved in making those ultimate decisions and then presented to the Board of Trustees. So I presume that, as Oz Nelson has done in the last few years superbly, that the new chairman, Jason, will use the best experience that he can derive for all the programs of the Carter Center. He may not be directly involved in as many direct peace negotiations and so forth as I, but he'll be going, for instance, to Myanmar for the election, the first part of November. And he'll be heading up the Carter Center delegation to monitor that very important election.
Maria Supporta, a longtime journalist in Atlanta
I know.
with Supporta Report and now the Atlanta Business Chronicle.
I know.
You have had such a scope of work in your life. If in the time that you have left, what would give you the most satisfaction to see something happen? Peace in the Middle East or eradication of polio, or what are those things that you would hold on to the most that would give you the greatest satisfaction for the world? And if you can look at the state of the world and how you've been working in efforts to try and keep...
Well, in international affairs, I would say peace for Israel and its neighbors. That's been the top priority for my foreign policy projects for the last 30 years. Right now, I think the prospects are more dismal than any time I remember in the last 50 years. The whole process is practically dormant. The government of Israel has no desire for a two-state solution, which is the policy of all the other nations in the world. And the United States has practically no influence compared to past years in either Israel or Palestine. So I feel very discouraged about it, but that would be my number one foreign policy hope. As far as the Carter Center is concerned, I would like to see guinea worm completely eradicated before I die. I'd like for the last guinea worm to die before I do. I think right now we have 11 cases. We started out with 3.6 million cases. And I think we have 2 cases in South Sudan and 1 case in Ethiopia and 1 case in Mali and 7 cases in Chad. That's all the guinea worms in the world, and we know where all of them are. So I would say that would be my top priority.
This will be our last question.
Good morning, President Carter. Christopher King with CBS 46 News here in Atlanta. You fought many political battles throughout your career. How tough do you expect this fight against cancer will be?
Well, it won't be tough on my part. You know, I'm more quiescent and cooperating patient, and within the bounds of my own judgment, I'll do what the doctors recommend for me to extend my life as much as possible. So I don't look on this as any hardship on me. And they have means, they say, and I trust them completely, to alleviate the after effects or side effects of the different treatments. They've had a lot of treatments ongoing with different patients, thousands of them in the world. And so I don't anticipate any troubling pain or suffering or deprivation on my part.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. That it?
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for coming, and I appreciate it. I don't know if Dr. Curran, you want to add anything? Or if you have any particular questions, Dr. Curran can correct my mistakes. I'm sorry? After. Okay, I'm leaving. Thank you all very much.
Well, since that announcement this morning, many of you have been weighing in with your thoughts about President Carter. Sheila Soto says, I don't care what anyone says. This man has been the biggest humanitarian of all the presidents. Habitat for Humanity was his dedication to people in need. And this from our Facebook page, Mary Downs offering a good man, a good president, a good role model, married to the same woman for 69 years. Wonderful person. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say about President Carter on our website, actually on our Facebook page.